Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio, the most inspiring place on earth, for another installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. If you're a returner, you know what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear a lot about the ins and outs of what it takes to have a career in and around the NFL. Specifically, today, we're going to be talking about the career inside the National Football League, the league office in New York. And we'll learn all about that here in a little bit. But if this is your first time, thanks for tuning in. What you're going to hear about is, like I said, the ins and outs of what it takes to get a career in and around the NFL. And it's not just to be a player. It's not just to be a coach or, maybe work in marketing or advertising. There's so many different careers out there. And today we're going to be focused on community relations, the tie-in to every local community throughout the country when it comes to the NFL. Now, as you know, my name is Jake Ray. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Hall of Fame. And it's our mission to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which not only make our Hall of Famers on the football field, but it make them better men, brothers, fathers, members of their community. And truly, when you look at it, these values can make you a better employee, can make you a better student. So everything we talk about today isn't just applied to football players or Hall of Fame athletes. It can be applied to me, our special guest, Nathan, who you'll hear from in a little bit, as well as all of you who are tuned in today. First off, I'd like to thank a few people before we get started. First, I'd like to thank our special guest today, Megan Mendoza, Manager of Community Relations with the National Football League. As well as she knows, her job doesn't take place 18 weeks of the year when the NFL season's running. It's a full-time job, pretty much 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So much great work goes into what she does. So we know this is a busy time of the year within the season. So we want to thank her for giving her time today to speak to us, and we'll learn a little bit more about what she does. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, administrators, professors, anybody that allowed us to come into their classroom today or sent this out to their students. We're super excited. You're going to allow us to be just a small part of your students' learning experience this school year. And then lastly, I got to thank the students. Without you students here, this program doesn't take place. And as we say every week, nobody wants to hear me ask questions the entire time. Nobody wants to hear Nathan ask questions the entire time. We want to hear from you. This program is here for you to ask questions to Megan, to us at the Hall of Fame, to learn more about how you can better yourself within your college experience as well as your future career. So take advantage of this opportunity. I wish I had this opportunity when I was in college. To learn more about what kind of job I could have when I graduated. So put your name, the school you go to, let us know your question. Nathan's watching that YouTube feed, jotting down all those questions once they come in. So again, encourage you to submit your questions. Don't be scared. Somebody's got to be first. So it might as well be you. Go ahead and let us know your question and where you're coming from today. So today we are lucky and grateful to be joined by Megan Mendoza, who has worked for the NFL in the Community Relations Department for the past 6 seasons. Prior to her time with the league office, she worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Community Relations for a season, and for the Miami Dolphins, kind of sense a Florida theme here, in ticket sales for 1 season. She's, here we go, graduate of Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our special guest today, Miss Megan Mendoza. Megan, welcome to the program today.
Hey, thank you so much, Jake. Thank you, Nathan. I'm very, very excited to be here. Please ask questions. I'm here to help and looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, we'll just dive right in. And like we do every program, it's just kind of start out 10,000 foot view, Manager of Community Relations. We've talked to people who do this at the team level. How different is it at the team level compared to the NFL? And what do you do, on a day-to-day basis working for the league?
Yeah, it's a different perspective at the league level versus the team level. I miss the team level because you're there more day to day in the community, really seeing the work come to life and make a difference. And you're really interacting with those teachers in the schools, with those nonprofit partners on the ground. At the league office, it's a different perspective here. I still love it because I'm learning a whole different type of avenue of sports. At the league office, it's a bit more like around the scope type of thing. So we really work in a year: Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, draft, kickoff. Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we're planning our community events around these key timeframes, as what we say. And then there is a lot of day-to-day emails, phone calls, and just preparation. So school students, as you well know, all that studying that takes place, all that preparation still takes place, even in a corporate type of job. Try to make it fun. But day to day, I am taking a lot of calls, meetings. Zoom is key nowadays, and just trying to make things happen. And we're getting ready for a Super Bowl in LA. So all of those things tie into our cause initiatives. So I help lead Salute to Service, one of our initiatives, and NFL Play 60, our youth health and wellness initiative, and then help out in other areas as far as community events go.
You talk about working those specific events. You mentioned the Super Bowl, and we'll get to that here in a second. But within your job specifically, you got to Salute to Service on today. We hear about Play 60, Crucial Catch, all these different celebrations that the NFL has embraced and celebrates monthly as we go through the season. Talk a little bit about some of the ones you specifically oversee there, and what goes into that. Are you working with players or other folks at the league office? Are you working with teams to kind of help push that initiative and get a message out there?
Yeah. And one thing, let me start here. One thing that's special about community relations, this type of department and this job, is it works with all of the internal departments. So we work with communications, which is PR. We work with our marketing department. We work with broadcast, our finance department. Literally every department is something that we touch and we connect with in order to make these cause initiatives happen. So for example, right now we're week 8 in the regular season of the NFL. Going into week 9, just know each one of these cause initiatives are year round. So you're seeing it being highlighted in a particular month. I'm going to talk about Salute to Service because that's taking place in the month of November, where we highlight with our broadcast partners. If you're either at the game, so say you're going to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, or you're at home watching the game, you're going to see Salute to Service come to life on the field with goalpost banners, with raps, with social media posts. All of those type of communications, the broadcasters talking about our initiative. So they are going to get talking points and messaging documents that talk about our nonprofit partners related to Salute to Service, and the military, the active duty veterans, their families, all the active duty military members, veterans and their families. And all of that is communication that our team in community relations works on. So it's exciting. If you're a student trying to think about, you're not really sure what interests you, I would just take this time in college to find experiences and internships and opportunities that really spark your interest. And then when that first job comes, it might not be everything that you wanted, but it's going to play a key role into getting where you need to go for that first type of job. So I'm a manager in community relations right now, but I started out in ticket sales, and then I didn't even know what community relations was until I graduated college and was working at the Miami Dolphins in ticket sales. So I'm kind of going off of that, because just don't be afraid or scared if maybe your job or what you thought you wanted to do changes a little bit as you're on your road to wherever your journey takes you.
Can you talk about a little bit that transition? Because the moniker you hear in college, especially if you want to work in sports, is you got to go through sales. That's how you get your foot in the door, and that's how you get into that NFL or MLB, NBA, whatever it might be. Frankly, for me, I did not like sales. I didn't want to do sales, and
I didn't either.
I have been very lucky to start in a career very similar to a community relations job that you would have within NFL organization or any other professional sports team. But what was that experience like for you? Even though you just said you didn't like sales, was it just something, like, all right, I got to put the work in. I gotta get my foot in the door. And if this is the way to do it, I got to do it. And then how have you learned some of those techniques or things you learned in your first year with the Dolphins, in your job with the Bucs, and now your job with the league office?
Yeah, so I got to back it up a little bit. I grew up loving the game of football, pure love of the game of football. I grew up a Bucs fan, but age 5, I was wearing like a Miami Dolphins helmet. I got that as a Christmas gift one year. But age 7 is really when I chose like my sports teams, and the Bucs was one of them. And so when watching the games from age 7 up until when I'm in high school, I remember tracking the stats, and I wanted to be an NFL scout. So I kind of pursued that route first. And A lot of times, so everyone tuning in, you're going to hear so many different voices tell you so many different things. Like you start out in ticket sales, or you're going to get a job here, and that's the only way that you can make it. Your story is going to look different. There might be similarities between your story and my story of what I'm telling you, but your path might look completely different than mine, and you still end up in, whether it's sports or whatever type of business organization that you want to work for, you might take a different route. So call that audible, whatever it looks like. But for me, and that ended up being my final exams week, I was doing an internship in sports. And my sport management professor said, "Hey, Megan, there's a former student that works for the Dolphins that they just so happen to have these part-time ticket sales jobs." So I ended up applying for it. Just so happened that it was ticket sales. But it taught me so much. I didn't love it, but it taught me to stick it out, grit, grace, and just try to speak to different types of people and sell them on the Miami Dolphins at the time, the experience, the what we call assets, the things that you're able to work with and sell. So it helped me ask questions in a job field that I had no interest in, really had no desire to be there. But what I did want to keep doing is the drive to keep going and keep figuring out a way to move forward. So for students, your first job may be something that you don't like to do. For me, ended up being in ticket sales for about 8 months, and I ended up getting fired from that job, actually. Just so you know, they would take you into like a room, and there would be a group of people, and they'd say, "Okay, you're going to stay, you're going to go." I ended up making it to the Sweet 16, I like to say. We ended up getting a whole new management team, so we all had to re-interview for our jobs anyway. So I went through like a unique experience in sports. But the beautiful thing about that story is a week later, I ended up getting rehired in guest services for the Dolphins. So very odd, but I would just say keep sticking with it. And during my time as a guest service representative, which is like walking the players' family members to their suites to go watch the game, I found out about community relations, and it was with the team that I loved at the time, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I still love them today, but that is like opened up the avenue to, wow, this is a job description that I am passionate about. So as you're searching LinkedIn, students and even adults, like whatever age you are, try to find the things that you're interested in doing and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And just pursue it. My dad told me, he was like, ever since a young age, make a plan and work the plan. And that plan may change, but there's always going to be that consistency for me, which is the love of the game of football. So
awesome. Yes. And I know Nathan's got some questions that we're going to throw him out to him here in a second, but, kind of playing off of that, what you said there, you said, you went through it, you went through the grind like you had to get your foot in the door. You got that job with the Bucks, but the one line I kind of pulled out at is, you saw something or a career that you knew you had a passion for. So now being in community relations the past 6-7 years, the cliche is, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? So, or why do you, they say you never work a day in your life if you truly love the job you have. So why do you, Megan Mendoza, love working in community relations? And what is it about that aspect that is so special?
Yeah, what hit me when I was a lot of things. First off, I love the game of football. And even though we're not out there on the field, we're still contributing in the community on behalf of the NFL. So that's what's kept me in this job, is a love for people, a love for making a difference wherever I'm at, and the love, pure love for the game of football. I think it's the greatest game ever played. I know y'all at the Pro Football Hall of Fame agree with that. And I love it. I can't explain that. So working for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was an amazing experience from a team level, because you're seeing that difference being made. So I kind of missed that when I went to the league office in New York City. I left the Florida girl life, to kind of go to the Big Apple. And I never wanted to live in New York. But all that to say for everybody listening is your path to a job may take you to another state that you didn't even know that you would live in. And so to be able to say yes to that, and so many unknowns take you out of your comfort zone of what you're familiar with, has grown me so much here. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And then when you know it, you're like, okay, wow, community relations. I kind of have an understanding now from the team perspective. And then you step into the league perspective, and it's a whole different group. It's corporate work. So I definitely felt like I feel like I'm working, where I'm at. But what is these beautiful moments that happen is when you do a partnership with Special Olympics, and it's tied around making an impact for inclusive communities with athletes with intellectual disabilities and pairing them with athletes without intellectual disabilities. If you would have asked me if I was even in high school, if that's a partnership that I would have helped work on or come to happen at the league office, I would have been like, wow, I didn't know I would be able to do that. And so each one of you are going to go through life, and I'm kind of going, all over the place, but in the sense of like just putting myself back in your shoes of there's going to be these experiences that take place when you pursue that dream or that goal that you didn't know what it was going to look like. There may be in a piece of it, like I love the game of football, but it opened up the door to this whole other department, community relations, that I had no idea about. And it happens to be with the NFL.
I think community relations is one of those special careers too, because, you look at sports and there's a ton of movement. You mentioned it, you're moving from job to city, state to state. But you kind of look at that little niche of community relations. There's a lot of folks throughout sports, once they're in there, they're at that job 10, 20 years because, it is such a kind of a niche career, and it gets you to be involved and work in the community. So I think it's folks who work in community relations. I said before, we consider our youth and education department here kind of an offset of what a CR department would be. So, but I think that career is super special because there's so many cool and unique things that you get to do within, your own job description.
For sure. Yeah, it does open up the door. And I don't know, those listening, those students, what you're majoring in. I majored in business management with a concentration in sport management. So that meant that I took like a few extra classes that had to do with sport leadership and sport management, but I had a business degree. You could have a communications degree. In high school, I was in the band too. I played soccer and I was in the band. So like I had kind of these arts type of background and this creative type of background. I bring that into the work that I do at the league office too. So don't ever like put yourself in a box of like, well, this is what I'm majoring in. So I don't even know if I could touch that realm of sports or whatever that looks like. Pursue it and speak about it. Do internships and different types of experience that are going to connect in some way, and the ability to communicate it to the hiring manager. I just think that that's so important to be on the lookout for that as students your age and even adults, like whatever that looks like for you.
Speaking of those students, I know we got some questions flying in, so I'm going to send it out to Nathan Martin, Youth and Education Coordinator here at the Hall of Fame, to go through some of those questions from the students we have tuned in today.
Yeah, thank you, Jake, so much. And thank you, Megan, for joining us. And our first question coming from our students is from Jack, who attends the University of Iowa, the Hawkeyes. And he said, what is your favorite memory in your career so far?
Wow. So favorite memory. I remember Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco. It was the year 2016. It was my first ever Super Bowl. I had been hired at the NFL, moved to New York in July of 2015, and I started in August of 2015. So who knew a few months later I'd be going to the Super Bowl. And I remember for community relations, we have community events take place each day of the week leading into that Super Bowl Sunday. So at the time, we were working with the San Francisco 49ers and also at the time, Oakland Raiders on a community event. And there was one, it was with Special Olympics. I keep going back to that, but it was in the Valley somewhere. And I remember driving like 2 hours because I was the NFL representative for this event. And it was one that the clubs were hosting. And I remember getting there and it was like family because their San Francisco 49ers community relations team was like, hey, Megan, come on in. This is what we're doing with unified flag football. And that's when they pair athletes with intellectual disabilities with athletes without it. And these athletes play like unreal. Like it doesn't matter who you are, like they played a game of football. And it was at nighttime. And I remember it was like cool outside. And I just thought that was like a moment that stuck in my mind, the drive there and the drive back and being there. That was like, I love, like, this is the part of the job that I love because it makes, that is what makes a difference is doing events like that. And our 32 NFL clubs, they really make the difference in their community. So thank you, Jack. That's one that stuck out.
I think that's an awesome memory. And to me, I think it's so cool because you could have been like, oh, I went to Super Bowl 50 and it was so cool to be at the game and the halftime show. But it's like, no, like the events leading up to it and the impact that we're making in the community, like those are the memories that are really sticking with you. And I think that's just a credit to the type of individual you are. Another question, and I'm not even going to try to say their name because I know I would butcher it, so I apologize, but this is a student from Loyola University in Chicago. They're a marketing major, and they said, what type of advice would you give to someone that wants to get a job in sports, but they're a marketing major? They're not sport management, they're not sport business, but they're like, I'm passionate about sports. Can I still get into sports? Do I need to have that major or that minor?
Absolutely.
What type of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Marketing, if you had that type of degree, that's a perfect degree to have. And there's a marketing department at the league office. There are marketing departments at the NFL teams, at the NBA, in sports leagues in general. Marketing, we work with marketing to promote our cause and our community initiatives. So you would be a key piece in working with, say it's a community relations team member or broadcast, to get that message out. So your degree is valuable and your interest is valuable. So at the time I had Teamwork Online and LinkedIn. Teamwork Online was something that is where I found all my jobs. I don't know what it's like nowadays. I haven't been searching on there or anything, but I would connect on LinkedIn and see who's in the marketing field and students around you. I remember talking with my fellow classmates who were also in it. We didn't know anybody in sports. Talk to your professors and just see what type of experience you can do even in the sports world with marketing at your college or around town. So all that's to say, that's definitely A-okay. That's a beautiful major to have, and you can go far with that.
Awesome. And I think you're right there. You mentioned trying to maybe build network, ask even your classmates, your professors who they know, or, you guys start building a network with each other. Just so our students know that are watching, Megan, we have the link to her LinkedIn. You guys can connect with her, let her know that you saw her on Before the Snap, maybe send her another question if your question doesn't get asked today. But I'm going to send it back to Jake. And then the next time you guys see me, I'll actually be out in our museum, but Jake has some more questions until we get to that part of the program.
Yes, thanks, Nathan. Yeah, we'll let you get position there in the museum for our next special inside look here in Before the Snap. Looking at your career, Megan, you said you had that idea, I want to work in sports. I love sports. Just didn't really know what kind of facet or niche you wanted to be in. So it's flashback all the way to high school, coming out of high school, going into college. If somebody, they have a kind of an idea or they might not know at all, what would your advice for them be in trying to find that career or find that one thing they're passionate about to make their full-time job when it comes time for that?
Yeah, I would research and see. For me, I ended up not knowing that there was a business, like a sport management type of degree, until after I graduated. I went to a community college, which became a state college. So I stayed in Fort Myers, Florida. But I remember watching a Tennessee Vols basketball game, and Candace Parker at the time, what they would do is they would say what their college majors are, and it said sport management. So I would look that up. I'm like, sport management. Obviously the word sports stuck out to me. And I realized that Florida Gulf Coast University, my local university, they had that degree. And so I ended up pursuing that. So it's okay. I was the type of person that had so many different interests. I wanted to be like a marine biologist. I wanted to do so many different things, and also wanted to be in sports. So I would say research and pursue kind of these people that you look up to maybe, and see what they graduated in or what they majored in, and see if that's something that you want to pursue. Also at the time, I worked at a movie theater in college at AMC. And I remember still building out a dream there, trying to pay my expenses and all of that, and figuring things out. I didn't have that network that everybody talks about, but I had classmates and friends in college and professors that I talked to, and you just keep it going. I would say research your interests and see what you want to pursue and do it.
So you do the research, you find what you want to pursue, whatever it might be. We're obviously going to say, make sure it has sports to be involved, specifically football, but we understand you have other interests out there, but you find what you want to do. You get to college, and we've already talked about a little bit how important networking is. I look back on my college career and I'm thinking, man, I missed the boat. I could have done way better than I did. when it came to networking. You know, I was the shy kid that, you know, that person doesn't want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to this college freshman or sophomore or junior. I don't want to go bug them. Looking back, you know, you got to be that person. You got to kind of step out of your comfort zone and get out there and build your network. So when for a student in college, you know, a lot of our audience today are college students. How important it is to start building your network, and what are some tips to kind of get the ball rolling with that and start growing and building relationships?
Yeah, I would just start with where you're at. Like, I remember being in college and even high school, and you just are with friends or people that have those similar interests and passions towards you that are working towards that same goal, and you help each other out. Like, if you can be that person, no matter who you are, if you're the CEO of a company or if you're the janitor of a place, like still treating each person with respect and not trying to like one up or gain an opportunity just to try to get like your foot in the door. Like, there's a way to go about it and do it that's real. And I would just say, if you have fellow classmates that are around you, like, talk with one another. There's a professor, for me, it was a sport management professor that knew a former student. Talk to those professors in the industry that you're looking for. And I also was shy and reserved, and but you ended up, when it was something that you're passionate about, being able to speak up. And that's something, looking back, I'm like, there are points in time where you should speak up way more. Also looking back, if maybe I was more outspoken, I would probably be like, well, maybe I should have listened more. So really just kind of figure that out. What I love about the game of football, I'm going to kind of go into a football analogy here, is that it's about team. And when one part of the team isn't doing well, it affects the other part of the team. So as you go through life, you keep yourself accountable, like keep what you bring to the table, see value in it, and be comfortable in it, and be okay asking questions that you might not even know the answer to. So humble yourself and like ask, like, doesn't matter. Like, even if it's a no, like still ask, even if they say no, like keep going and just showing up. I think that's so important. Showing up as who you are.
And I'm glad you brought up the football analogy. Like we said
Let's
before,
go.
you know,
Let's talk football. Yeah.
here at the Hall of Fame, we're unapologetically football. I'm sure that's the same case with the league office. And we know the game of football can teach so many great life lessons. You mentioned team. So why is the game of football so important to the fans, the people who play it at any level, coach it, you know, watch it on TV, you know, work in that atmosphere? Why is it so important? And what are those life lessons that you can take away from the game of football?
Yeah, what I love about the game of football, and I never played, if anything, it was like street football in the neighborhood. So when it comes to the game of football, one thing that I love about it is the camaraderie, like the teamwork. Like, you're not only you're gonna win, like you're gonna work as a team to win that game, and you're gonna do it with integrity. You're gonna do it with grit and character. And there's 4 quarters there, and you have 15 minutes in each quarter. And like, let's go. Like, you have the quarterback, you have the wide receivers, you have the tight ends, you have the defense, you have the special teams, you have the kicker. Like, literally every man, every person on that team matters. And that's what I love about it. And every yard and every snap, every play call, everything that's directed, that you're watching as a fan, either as looking at the game, or you're in it and you're actually a player and you're playing the game, is you're working together. It's like this sweet rhythm that ends up, you want to win. And then you have kind of even these other fans around you that are cheering you on to be the best you and win it, you know? And so I love the teamwork part of the whole game of football. I love it. And you see that in sports, but football in particular, it's like another level that, and it's hard to articulate other than it's on another level.
You know, and we're fortunate, you know, to be immersed in that world. Every day we show up to work, and it's very cool because you do get to kind of see that firsthand. You know, there are always coaches talk about, you know, this game's so special and it teaches so many, and that's cool. But till you get to see the impact kind of outside the huddle or outside the locker room, when you are working in the game full time, it's very, very special. And, you know, that kind of all ties in back to, you know, working in that community relations field or working with youth and working with people that live in that community. It's so special, and using the game of football is very, very important. And along those lines, like we promised, I do want to throw it out to Nathan Martin, who's in our museum. He's in he's in our rotunda in front of some very cool artifacts that do relate not only to what you do, Megan, but to our mission here and kind of the idea of celebrating excellence everywhere in everything that you do involved in the game. So I'm going to throw it out to Nathan, who's in front of some very special artifacts here at the Hall of Fame.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. And it's a busy day here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A lot of people out here in the museum. I'm on the second floor of our rotunda right now. And up here, we've got history from the first 100 plus years of the National Football League. Things like record breakers, things like pioneers of the game, trailblazers, and so on and so forth. But I'm in the record breakers area right now. So you guys can kind of see, we got the Drew Brees jersey behind me. There's an Eric Dickerson jersey back there. Dickerson still holds the NFL record for most rushing yards in a single season. Drew Brees rewrote the NFL record book when it comes to passing, and it's now being rewritten, I guess, by Tom Brady, because Tom Brady is still playing. So Megan's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady. But you might be like, okay, cool. Records are awesome. It's fun to see those things come down and be broken. But what does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Well, I actually want to flip my camera around here so you guys can get a closer look. And if you look right here on this Drew Brees jersey, you'll see a couple of patches on his uniform. And one of them is the patch that's given to the winner of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And it was an award that Drew Brees won back in 2006 based on his work in the New Orleans community following Hurricane Katrina. The other one you see right underneath there is the C, the captain's patch. But if you look really, really closely, you'll actually see the multicolored background on that patch, because this jersey was worn during the month of October, which is the NFL's Crucial Catch Month. And it brings awareness to the importance of catching cancer early. Now, Megan has talked about, let's get this flip back around, her work in the community. And I just got to ask you, coming out here from in the museum, you know, Walter Payton Man of the Year, Crucial Catch Month, you mentioned Salute to Service. What, in your experience, are some of the examples where you've seen teams, or maybe even you've got to work with players and seeing them give back to the communities that they play in? What are some of the examples that you've seen, Megan?
Megan, you there? It looks like we might have lost her. That's what happens here when we're trying to deal with Zoom and people connecting all over the country. But we want to thank Nathan, and we'll come back to Megan if she comes back to us here. I want to thank Nathan for showing us that live look into the museum. And we showcase that here at the Hall of Fame because it is so important to us, and it's part of our mission: honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. It's such an important, and that's why we come to work every day. That's what we want to do. We want to showcase that this game of football is so important. And looking at a jersey like that of Drew Brees is showing that not only is he a captain, but he's that the NFL is celebrating Crucial Catch Month. And not only is he a great quarterback, I'm not a voter, but I'm pretty certain that he might have a bronze bust here in Canton one day. Great player for the game, but he's given back. And I think that's truly the importance when you look at that, and how important an award like the Walter Payton Man of the Year award is. And off of my little tiny screen here, it looks like we do have Megan back. So Megan, I want to welcome you back to Before the Snap.
Thank you.
Like I said, we're gonna work with those technology glitches as the best we can. And to kind of re-ask Nathan's question that he had there, what are some examples of you either working with NFL teams, or maybe even specifically a player like Drew Brees when they're giving back to their communities?
Yeah, and what I loved about what Nathan was showing is that it shows that each player, they have a heart. And part of our initiative is Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, Crucial Catch. Crucial Catch talks about preventing cancer, and you try to intercept cancer. Everybody that you speak with either knows somebody has been directly impacted by cancer, or knows somebody that knows somebody. So these are initiatives that players are involved with. And Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, a lot of players have their own foundations with causes that they're passionate about. You'll see that with other player initiative called My Cause, My Cleats. And so it's been cool to see through the years and work specifically with players on NFL Play 60 youth health and wellness events, because that player is passionate about getting kids healthy and they tell their story and they give back. The beautiful blessing of the NFL and the game of football is that there's an amazing game that takes place on the football field. And then everybody says, and it's true, off the field, a lot of these players are doing incredible work in their own community. And a lot of them don't really talk about it. They just do it. And so to be able to go to these community events and see different players, there's so many, I don't want to just call one specifically out, but the guys of the league, they are making a difference, and they're doing it in their own home with their families side by side, and they're going out into their community and they're coming back and they're giving back to high school football stadiums that they used to be a part of, and just causes that they're passionate about. So it's really cool to see it and witness it.
And it's cool. We talk about, obviously since you've started in the industry, the job has changed. It's ever changing and will continue to change. But I kind of want to parlay off of that in, how has the NFL celebrating these months? You talk about Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. You talk about Crucial Catch, Salute to Service, Hispanic Heritage. How has those celebrations continue to evolve, and how does that impact what you do within your job? Because obviously, the more celebrations, the more events, that means more work the community relations department has to do. So what has that change been like? And is it something that's good? Obviously probably makes you a little busier, but is it cool to see that evolve more and more each year?
Yeah, it has been. And these are things that players in the league, they've done, and then it gets highlighted more. So as technology advances, the game of football advances and innovation only on the field with the way that a fan sees the game and goes to a game and experiences the game. Also within that are our cause initiatives and us communicating that out to fans of, hey, you're part of the NFL family, be part of the league. Here's also what we're about. We're about these different initiatives. And it's usually already a fan or a person has some connection to it, and you're just communicating it in a way that's more visual and that you can see it. So
well, I can definitely say, even here, whether it's a Play Football banner or, every stadium you see the Play 60, you see all the signage up there. It is definitely visible, which is very, very cool to see, because, we see a banner, we see a moment at halftime or pregame, you put the work into that. So I'm sure that has been very, very special to be a part of. I know Nathan's got some more questions. We're going to throw it back out to him. He's back in the Gold Jacket Lounge now, back in his big comfy chair there to ask some more questions here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. And actually, I was doing some research because I felt bad because I couldn't say the student's name last time. I literally Googled how to pronounce it. So hopefully I don't butcher it now. Araceli, a student from Loyola University Chicago, had another question for you, Megan, and said, what advice you as a woman would you have for other young women who want to work in sports? It's been a male-dominated industry for years and years. So how do you break in? How do you fit in? How do you still be you in the sports industry?
Well, Araceli, you coming in with question number 2, that shows me your character right there of just being a go-getter and just pursuing and just being nonstop and relentless. And so that would be some of the qualities. And for me, I just always look at myself as I'm a person and that happens to love the game of football. And what was unique to my story is all of my bosses in sports have been women. In ticket sales, it was a woman that actually hired me. In community relations, it was another woman. And then in social responsibility at the league office in community relations, it's been a woman. So, shout out to those that have paved the way before, but a lot of my mentors have been men, and just being comfortable to just speak with where you're at and bring value to the table, and don't let any voice ever say that you're not worthy to be there or you don't have what it takes, because you're going to hear so much. So it's just just don't believe that, and also still have fun and just be excited about what it is that you're pursuing, and don't let that stop you. So I can tell by you're asking a couple of questions to keep speaking up and keep pursuing what it is that I believe you mentioned marketing. Continue to refine that and build on that and grow on that. So yeah, thank you to the mentors too that have been encouraging. I know my mom and my dad, like the way that I was raised, I came from like a Hispanic background. So like I'm half Puerto Rican, and so I was able to, you just kind of, you are who you are, and you have a unique story to tell, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, and be able to speak to any person, no matter who they are, and no matter where they come from, with the same level of respect that you give anybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's cool that you even were able to mention that in your experience, it's been women that have been hiring you. So
Yeah.
there have been trailblazers already that are in the sports industry that are doing amazing and awesome things. I know even here at the hall, we have a display case, and this is more on the field, but Sarah Thomas as an official, she was the first female to be able to be an official during the Super Bowl. So we've got like everything. She was out there wearing the flag that she was throwing on the field. It's all on display for people when they're able to come to Canton, Ohio and visit the Hall of Fame. Another question coming from Kiva, who attends Winona State University. She's a communication major. And considering all the people that you've met, Megan, in your experience in the sports industry field, what personal attributes do you think are essential to success?
Yeah, Kiva, thank you. That's a great question. And it goes on with the other question too, that I want to reemphasize is respect and the ability to voice what's on your heart to share, and the ability to listen. And we think about sports, we even think about the game of football, like there's a listening that takes place, like the coach is in the room, there's a studying that takes place, you watch film. For me, it's been, okay, there's a studying that takes place of the sports industry and growing in my craft, growing in my job, community relations. It's really speaking with people and not being concerned about who it is you're speaking with, making sure that you're given that same level of respect and love and appreciation to whoever is in front of you, no matter who they are. Again, I want to re-emphasize, but the level of respect, no matter who you are, is a key ingredient, I believe.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with respect. I mean, if we treat people with respect, if we treat people the way that we want to be treated, that we know is right, that goes a long way and shows the type of individual you are, the type of character you have. So I think that's essential, to use Kiva's term, essential to success.
Yeah, Kiva, you got it. That's it.
Yeah. So I got one more question from a student, and then if we get any more in, I'll let Jake know. But I know we're getting close to our time that we have with you. This is from Brian. He attends the University of Illinois. And he said, so you told us you started in sales, but did you have like any internships with NFL teams or the league while you were a student? Brian must be a sophomore. He's like, am I too young to get an internship with the NFL? Does the NFL hire interns? Kind of give us the whole scope of your experience and then what you know, how it works today.
Yes. So Brian, I didn't have a football team near me. The schools that I attended didn't even have football programs, but they had other athletics. So there was an arena football team near me. So I actually ended up going into their office, the Florida Tarpons, and I ended up being like a raffle. I would sell raffle tickets in the stands, but I just asked, right? And that was experience that I had. I also had the internship in our athletics department, and we had a basketball team. So I would be there for every home game. I would help with fundraising. I would help with communications. I would interview the student athletes, and being able to do that opened up my eyes to the sports world and the ability to communicate and go after those experiences and put that on my resume. I went to, because I was interested in scouting, I researched the regional combine in Tampa, and that was like, I just found it, reached out, I showed up, I saved up for it, went to Tampa for the day, and ended up like clocking like 40-yard dashes and like setting up the cones, and like it was at the Bucks facility too. So I was like I remember going to a Bucks game in high school, and at the time, I'm trying to think who it was. It was Mark, I can't remember, but the general manager of the Bucks, Mark Dominic, I believe. And I remember like writing my information and just being like, hey, I'm interested in a job with the Bucks. And just like, he was like going near the end zone, and I had walked down in that area, like from the stand, and like handing it to him. And like, and I'm like a shy kid. So I would just say, Brian, like I'm not anymore. But I would just do it, like try to make an opportunity happen. Because you're not just going to be, I was never handed anything. So you just got to kind of create something and just do it. Yeah. I feel like I'm
That's
quoting Nike right now.
that
But it's
story
true.
of the Bucks game, like that is crazy and does not
Right?
sound like someone that is shy. That sounds like a go-getter that's just gonna put yourself out there. But that's amazing experience. Thank you, students, for our questions. Put them in. We might have time to come back over here, but if not, Megan, I want to thank you for being a part of the program with us. I know Jake will have a couple questions to wrap things up, but thank you so much. And students, thank you for asking your questions.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nathan. Yeah, I guess a few more to wrap up here before we wrap the program. In some of those answers, you talked about those soft skills, having respect and integrity, the values that I'd said at the beginning, you would hear them throughout the program. You mentioned those soft skills, but along with every career, there are those skills you need to learn to become a better, in your case, manager of community relations. So I know over the last 2 years, there's been so many opportunities to learn online or take a class or watch a seminar. So for you specifically, what do you do to make sure you're on the top of your game and making sure that you're the best manager of CR that you can be?
Yeah. And so it would just be that it's being the best manager of CR that I can be. And at the league office, you hit the ground running. Like I remember coming into this job as a coordinator and just being in these meetings, in these league board meetings with like whatever executive was there of marketing, commissioner, all of these people, and you learn the experiences on the go. So for me, it was like street smarts almost of like, okay. And one thing that really stuck out to me that I wanted to bring up is to over communicate. I didn't always over communicate. I would kind of just like mention like, hey, this is what's going on. But with my boss, like being able to FYI and just continuously tell the story is something that I grew in and I learned. And that had to do with communications. And I feel like that's something that I'm forever learning because there's all different types of people that you work with. So as a student, really don't assume that somebody knows what you've gone through or where you've been or like what's going on maybe internally or whatever that looks like, or some of the ideas that you have, even though they might not be fully thought out, like still bring up that idea and speak up in your college class. When you get that first full-time job, like speak to the people. Like, yes, I knew about community relations, but I didn't know about marketing fully and I didn't know about PR fully. So it helped me with my leadership skills that I will take when I lead a team one day, whatever that looks like, that are going to help you too. So over communicate. Want to reemphasize that.
Awesome. It's just another great tidbit for our watchers, our viewers to take away today. And that leads me into our final question. First off, I want to again thank you for giving us an hour of your time today. We know in the NFL season, it is a crazy, busy, full-time job. So we appreciate taking time out of your busy day. But there's been so many great little pieces of information, nuggets of information that students can take away today. So probably the hardest question you'll answer today. If you can take everything that we've talked about today and kind of sum it up and leave everybody with one final piece of advice, that one last piece of information that they can take and apply their lives, apply their jobs, apply to their college life, what would that one final piece of information be?
Be driven. That's the first thing that came in my mind is be driven and tell your story and pursue what you're passionate about. Don't let the roadblocks, even if you have to fight for everything that you have in the best way of like, it's not handed to you, but the timing will be there. The right job's going to be there. Takes patience. So all of that makes you need to continue to be driven and never give up. Do not give up. Keep pursuing it. Keep looking at different avenues and ways to get around it, to go through it, whatever that looks like, no matter who you are and no matter where you come from.
Awesome. What a great way to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series today, featuring Megan Mendoza, Manager of Community Relations with the National Football League. As I said before, Megan, thank you so much for being part of the program today. We're super excited. We were able to get your time to hear and talk to all of the students we have tuned in. So again, for myself and Nathan, thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, Jake and Nathan, and Hope all goes well today there in Canton.
Awesome. Thank you. And as always, before we leave today, make sure you're staying tuned in with all of the great stuff we have here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, all the great content we're pushing out. Follow us on all social channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Do people even use Facebook anymore? But for this program specifically, the Pro Football Hall of Fame does have a LinkedIn page. Tune into that. See all the great stories that are being sent out. Great story on our new president here at the Hall of Fame, Mr. Jim Porter, that was sent out yesterday. Give that a read. Learn a little bit about him. Stay tuned to all of the great NFL platforms as well, learning all the great initiatives that the NFL is pushing out. And then make sure you stay tuned for all the great programming we have coming up here at the Hall of Fame. For this specifically, before the snap, next week, October 29th, we have Mike Myers, who is the creative director here at the Hall of Fame. And yes, we are having Mike Myers on the weekend of Halloween. Coincidence, just happened to line up that way. So make sure you're tuned in to learn a little bit about his job and all the great design work that goes into some of the great images and pictures you see that the Hall of Fame pushes out. For all of our viewers today, if you're tuned in and you watched and you want to learn more about these programs, be the first to know when we schedule new ones, shoot us an email at education@profootballhof.com, and we'll put your email down and you'll make sure you get an email that goes out before a lot of other folks get the heads up about who we're going to have here on Before the Snap. Again, that's education@profootballhof.com. And if you have any questions about us too, don't hesitate to reach out. Our email is listed there in the chat as well. I said at the beginning, the game of football, and I've said it a few times, isn't just a 7-day-a-week job that you do in the fall and early winter. It is a full-time job throughout the entire year, and it takes a lot of work. We see the final product on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, but there is so much work that goes into making that ball kick off to start each game. And Megan is a huge part of that. So Megan, thank you for everything you do for the game of football and indirectly do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And as I said, we can't thank you enough for being a part of the program today. So for myself, from Nathan, all of our staff here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. And we'll see you next week right here on our YouTube page for our